So, cartels. So today is actually a disappearance day of two devotees, Swarup Damodar Goswami and another devotee. It's also the day of the Ratha yatra. So it's a very important day, so that's what we're going to be speaking about this morning. Let's see, it's about these personalities and the Ratha yatra. Hold on a second. Yeah, Shivananda Sain and Swarup Damodar Goswami today. And first, we're going to chant the prayers to the departed Vaishnavas, because it's their disappearance day. Jai Anilo Prema Dana Korana Prachu Jai Anilo Prema Dana Koruna Prachu Henu Prabhu Kotagela Acharya Thakur Kogela Acharya Thakur Kahamura Swarup Rupa Kaha Sanatan Mura Swarup Rupa Kaha Sanatan Gana Saragunata Patita Pavan Gunata Patita Pavan Kamura Bhatta Juga Kaha Kavira Ekakale Kotakela Gora Nataraj Kaila Ashane Kutibo Mata Anale Pashibo Kutibo Mata Goranga Gunera Nede Kotakele Papo Kunera Nede Kotakele Papo Say Sapa Sangi Ira Sange Ye koilo vilas Ye koilo vilas Se sangana paya konde Narottamadas Gapaya Kande Narottamata Jayat Nilo Prematana Koruna Prajo Jayacharya Thakur, Jayacharya Thakur, Jayacharya Thakur, Jayacharya Thakur. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravidikacharya, also Teta, such as Shimad, His Divine Grace Sabaya, Chadanada Bhaktivedanta, Goswami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, ISKCON Founder Acharya, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai, Prem Se Kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda Shidwaita Gadadha Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopi Gopinath Shaima Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai, Vrindavanam Ki Jai, Mathuram Ki Jai, Jagannath Swami Ki Jai, Yamunamai Ki Jai, Shrimati Lasi Devi Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Gaur Premananda Hari Hari Bol. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Gaur Premananda Hari Hari Bol. Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Namani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pachari Nivishesha Shunyavadi Paschatcha Deja Tarni. So as I mentioned, today is the disappearance days of Swarup Damodar Goswami and Shivananda Sain. And also, it's the day of the Ratha yatra, the famous Ratha yatra in Jagannath Puri. So what I'm going to do is talk about Ratha yatra first. Hopefully, we will get to the other personalities before the time runs out. So, Om Ganat Timidanda Shah Gananjana Shlakya Chakshur Unmiritam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So, as far as the Ratha yatra is concerned, it is a multifaceted presentation that involves many different steps, and we're going to talk about the 13 steps of Ratha yatra today. Oh my God, 13 steps. Because it's a process that starts with the Snana yatra, which you had yesterday. Did you talk about Snana yatra in class? No. Didn't? No. Class? No. What?
We listened to Prabhupada.
Oh, you listened to Prabhupada yesterday. Oh, that's nice. So, actually, I'm going to start discussing what Snana yatra is. And I believe you had a Snana yatra, at least Adi Leela did a Snana yatra yesterday, because she's very dedicated to Lord Jagannath, Baladev, and Subhadra, and she travels with them. So that's the first step in the process, is Snana yatra. Snana yatra means bathing ceremony for Lord Jagannath, in which they actually pour the different substances over Lord Jagannath's transcendental body, Jagannath, Baladev, and Subhadra's transcendental body. And after the Snana yatra, it appears that Lord Jagannath is what? Getting sick. But he's not actually getting sick. That's interesting. He's making believe. The reason Lord Jagannath is making believe he's sick is because he wants to be with his wife, some quality time, as they say. Does everybody understand that? Because sometimes people make believe they're sick so they don't have to go to work. Right? So Lord Jagannath wants to spend time with his wife, and this is called the Anavasara. And also, as a practical measure, that's the time they paint the deities. The solitary time alone with Lakshmi is called Nibrita. Nibrita means the solitary time with Lakshmi. However, while he is having his solitary time with Lakshmi, he starts to remember the gopis in Vrindavan. Because Lakshmi and the goddesses of fortune are expansions of the gopis in Vrindavan. So by associating with them, he starts to remember the gopis. Just like in the Brihad Bhagavatamrita, we find that Krishna tells Satyabhama and Rukmini that the only reason I married you was because you remind me of my girlfriends. Now, those of you who may be married, don't try that. That would be extremely dangerous because you'll have to look for another wife then. But he was very honest with them. He said, actually, I had no desire to get married after he left Vrindavan. But when I got that message, this is from the Brihad Bhagavatamrita by Sanatana Goswami. When I got that message from Rukmini, then I thought, well, now I have to get married because I have to rescue her. So Krishna explains that. So anyway, so he's with Lakshmi, and he's developing more and more of a desire to go to Vrindavan. And so in Jagannath Puri, Vrindavan is represented by the Gundicha temple. The temple in Jagannath Puri, the original temple, is called Nilachala, and Gundicha is called Sundarachala. You understand? Sundara means very beautiful. Sundarachala. So he wants to go to visit Vrindavan, which is represented by the Gundicha temple. So what happens is before he goes on his Ratha yatra trip to Vrindavan, there's a necessity of cleansing the Gundicha temple. And that's called the Gundicha Marjana, which was yesterday, right? So that Gundicha Marjana also represents a devotee's heart and a devotee's mind. Because without perfectly cleansing our hearts and our minds, Vrindavan cannot manifest itself. Like Narottama Das Thakur prays, Vishaya Chadiya Kabe. Shuddha habe mana, habe hama, he rabo, Shri Vrindavana. When will my mind become pure so that I can actually perceive Vrindavan? Because even if you go to Vrindavan today, if your mind and heart is not pure, you will not see the real Vrindavan. You will actually see what's called a veneer. A veneer means a covering of, let's say, wood. Sometimes you have some, of course this is not veneer here, but that may be veneer. Sometimes you have very cheap wood, and it's covered by a very thin layer of something that looks like expensive wood. Anyone seen that? Sometimes you buy a very cheap table or something like that. That's what a veneer is. So Vrindavan is covered for those of us who don't have a Shuddha habe mana, a purified mind. Vrindavan is actually covered by this veneer, this covering that keeps us from seeing the real Vrindavan. So in order to see, perceive, and enter into Vrindavan, one has to have a purified mind. Shuddha chitte kore doi. And the way you get the purified mind, of course, is what? Cheto darpanam arjanam bhava mahadvagni nirvapanam, right? None of you know that verse. Hopefully you've been chanting it every day, right? By chanting the Lord's holy names with devotion, Cheto darpanam arjanam bhava mahadvagni nirvapanam. And in this way, the Lord's abode is revealed to you. So Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu does this in a very practical way when he's in Gundicha. He goes to the Gundicha temple and performs the Gundicha Marjana. He and his devotees personally cleanse the temple. Now you may say, well, the cleansing can be done by anybody. Just like you may be a resident of the temple here, you may think, well, we have other devotees to clean the temple. I'm too good. Right? You think, oh, that's his service, cleaning the temple. And if you see some dirt, you think, oh, that's not my service. Let the dirt stay there. Prabhupada said, that's Maya. If you see something that's in ignorance and you don't try to correct it, you're in ignorance. Prabhupada actually said that. Like if you're here in the temple and you see some dirt on the floor, and the person who's supposed to clean is not here, and you don't clean it, you're in ignorance. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and also we chant every morning, Mandira Marjanado, that the Guru, along with his disciples, is cleansing the temple. Not that the Guru sits on his big Vyasasan and says, clean up, boys and girls. He says, let's work together in cleansing. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he was the most enthusiastic cleanser of the Gundicha temple. And he would demand the devotees do a good job. And if one devotee did less than the others, he would chastise them. Sarcastically, he would say, you've done a very nice job. And then all the devotees piled all the dirt, threw it outside, took all the water from the Narendra Sarovar, which is a lake near the Gundicha temple, and washed the temple, and washed the temple so much that there were rivers coming out of the Gundicha temple. And then Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu personally cleansed the deity's sitting place, the Singasana, with his own cloth. So in this way, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu cleansed this temple, showing us that one must cleanse his heart in order to receive the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Very important lesson. All right, so the Gundicha temple is clean now. And so then Lord Jagannath, he proceeds to the Gundicha temple. But first, before proceeding, he takes permission from Lakshmi Devi. You know, obviously he has to say to his wife, she says, where are you going? He says, I'm just going for a walk. He's lying. So Lord Jagannath sometimes lies a little bit because he wants to be with the gopis. And this is called the Pandu Vijaya, in which Lord Jagannath goes out of the temple. Of course, in Jagannath Puri, he goes out of the temple in a very interesting way. He's carried with these silk ropes, and he bounces on all these cotton pads called tulis. Anyone seen the pictures of this? Very interesting. And there's a whole there's all sorts of people there like circus performers going right before Lord Jagannath. You know, spinning different things. And anyway, it's very, very interesting. They're playing drums. and they carry Lord Jagannath bouncing from one cotton pad to another to his Raths. And then devotees get a chance to see Lord Jagannath. Many of us get a chance to see Lord Jagannath for the first time in Jagannath Puri because they won't let any of us Westerners in. I tried to get in. One time I was there and I tried to bribe my way in. I said, how much will it cost? And they say, give me the money first. And I said, no, first I go in, then I give you the money. But it didn't work. Anyway, they have this whole system there. And while he's mounting his cart, they actually make an offering of food, which is called the Balagandhi Viprasana. And also, King Prataparudra, the king of Jagannath Puri, is sweeping the road in front of Lord Jagannath. It's very interesting. Actually, he's sweeping the road. Sometimes devotees have him sweeping the road in front of the carts, but he's actually sweeping the road in front of Lord Jagannath being carried to the carts. Does everyone understand that? When the carts are proceeding, he's not sweeping the road anymore. He sweeps the road in front of Lord Jagannath bouncing from one cotton pad to another. That's when he sweeps the road. And so then the procession continues to the Gundicha temple, and on the way to the Gundicha temple, several things happen. One thing happens that sometimes the cart doesn't move for various reasons. One time this occurred during Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes, that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu personally had to push the cart with his head, and then the cart moved. Previous to that, they tried to push the cart or pull the cart with elephants, and the cart wouldn't move. The same thing happened when Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was a little boy. He hadn't had his grain ceremony yet, because at a particular juncture, particular time in life, there's this ceremony, it's called the samskara, in which a child first gets his grains. Usually 5 months, 6 months of age. And so the cart stopped in front of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur's house, and the cart just wouldn't move. It just wouldn't move. It just remained static. And then Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's mother brought little baby, Bhaktisiddhanta, of course he wasn't Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur at that time. Bimal Prasad was his name. Brought him out to the cart, put him under Lord Jagannath's feet, and a garland from Lord Jagannath fell on top of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, indicating his position as the future Acharya. And then he took his grains from Lord Jagannath. So this happened many, many different times. So then the Lord Jagannath arrives at the Gundicha temple, and there's very, very opulent food offerings, and the devotees, they change their mood. What do I mean by changing the mood? That's interesting. That when they're in Jagannath Puri, in the Nilachal temple, they're very much reverent, very serious. You don't find Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu becoming like a child, or the other devotees like Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, or Ramananda Roy and others becoming childlike when they're in the Nilachal temple. But when they get to Gundicha, they become like little boys. What do I mean? They go into the lake. One of the lakes is called the Indradunya Lake. And they begin splashing each other and having a water fight. Could you imagine that? All these great serious personalities fighting each other in the water. You know, not seriously, not hurting each other, but splashing each other. And they even have symbols, and they're imitating frogs in the water. This is Lord Chaitanya, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Amazing. So they're imitating frogs, and there's symbols, and there's a big fight between Advaitacharya and Lord Nityananda. And they're actually getting very, very angry at each other. They're fighting like children. And at one point, Lord Nityananda splashes water in the face of Advaitacharya. And Advaitacharya starts, not cursing in the way that we normally think of cursing, but he starts calling Lord Nityananda bad names. So in this way, this goes on. And another thing that happens is that Advaitacharya, at one point, he manifests himself as Ananta Shesh, and Lord Chaitanya lies down upon him in the water. And they're floating like this. I mean, like little kids. Isn't it like water fights? This is amazing. Also, they sported in another lake called the Narendra Sarovara. And this way they played. But then there's a problem. The problem is that Lakshmi, she's waiting for her husband to come back. And I guess there's no mobile phones at that time to call her husband up, isn't it? You know, were you? Now, so she actually figures it out, what's been happening. So this is called the Hera Panchami. Panch means 5. So she figures out, wow, he's gone to meet with his girlfriends. And then what happens is that she sends all of her devotees along with herself, and this is called the Lakshmi Vijay. And they arrive. Remember, Lakshmi is worshipped in a mood of reverence. She's a very reverent person and worshipped in a mood of reverence. So she's dressed very opulently. It's not like the mood in Gundicha, where everybody is just very childlike, very spontaneous. So she's dressed very opulently. She arrives on a palanquin and with musicians. And what they do is that they arrest the followers of Lord Jagannath. They don't arrest Lord Jagannath. And they make believe they're beating them. Now, this particular play was put on during the time of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu watched this play, and it was actually it was all men doing the parts. They didn't usually have the ladies playing the different parts. And Lord Chaitanya was laughing. He said, Lakshmi's anger is very unique. And then Lord Chaitanya, because of the ferocity of her anger. And so he started to explain the different types of jealous women. Ladies, don't listen to this. So he says there's 3 types of jealous women: sober, restless, and mixed. So it's interesting how Lord Chaitanya was describing this. He said, and sober means they make believe they're not angry. They're just like peaceful. Okay, I'm not angry. You know, they smile, whatever. Restless, it means they really show their anger, like Lakshmi. You rascal. Like that. Of course, she didn't slap any. Well, of course, they did slap the associates of Lord Jagannath. Playfully. They didn't hurt anybody. And then there's mixed. Mixed means they get very sarcastic and they make jokes. Like, I know you love me. Something like that. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was laughing, seeing this ceremony of Lakshmi's anger, the Hera Panchami. So this goes on, and they are beating, not only beating Lord Jagannath's servitors, but they're beating the carts with their stick. You know, these stupid carts, they took Jai. Shri Shri Panchatattva ki Jai. These stupid carts, they took Lord Jagannath away. And so, in this way, this ceremony goes on, but still Lord Jagannath doesn't come back. He waits till the 9th day until he comes back. So he doesn't even listen to Lakshmi's desire to bring him back. He doesn't actually see Lakshmi when she comes because he's inside the temple and his associates are guarding the temple. So anyway, so that's the story of the Ratha yatra, but I think we should also tell the story of Lord Jagannath in this particular regard. That Lord Jagannath looks like Lord Jagannath, Baladeva Subhadra, because of different reasons. One is the exoteric reason. And the exoteric reason, of course, exoteric means the apparent reason that usually people hear in terms of the story. And that story, of course, is the story of King Indradyumna, who was the one who brought Lord Jagannath to Nilachal, or Jagannath Puri. That King Indradyumna, I'm not going to tell the whole story of the Jagannath Priya Natakam, that King Indradyumna brought the wood from the shore that floated to the shore, along with Vidyapati and like that. And he brought the wood into the place where it would be carved. And then he was wondering, who is going to carve this wood? So he called for all of his artisans, you know, people expert in carving. And every one of them, they couldn't do anything. Their tools broke because they were trying to carve Lord Jagannath. Eventually, there's actually two different versions of the story. One version is that Vishwakarma came. Another version is that the Lord himself came to carve the deity. But in any case, the Puranas have two different versions. In any case, a carver arrived, artisan arrived, and he said, I can carve the deity, but it'll take me 21 days, and you cannot interrupt me during the carving of the deity. And King Indradyumna said, okay. So this went on, and he was hearing the chip, 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 chip of the carving going on. And what happened is, after 14 days, he didn't hear anything. And he thought, you know, what's going on? Has something happened to the carver? And he thought, I'm not going to go in there and interfere. But guess what happened? His wife started nagging him. You got to go in. You got to go in. You got to check on him. And when he checked on the carver, there were 3 unfinished deities, because the carver had left as soon as he went in. And he thought, now I've committed a great offense. So he started fasting to die. He thought he wanted to die because he committed an offense against the Supreme Personality of God and interfered with the carving of the Lord. But then Lord Jagannath appeared to him and said, no, this is the way I want to appear. That's the exoteric reason. And he said, okay, because he had to go along with Lord Jagannath. And eventually, he arranged for the worship of Lord Jagannath. There's the whole story in the Jagannath Priya Natakam, which we can tell at a different time, maybe this evening, I don't know. So so eventually he arranged for the installation of Lord Jagannath. And then Lord Jagannath offered him benediction, asked for a benediction. He says, I want the benediction that your hands will never be dry. In other words, he'll be eating all the time. 3 benedictions he asked for. And so Lord Jagannath said, yeah, I can eat all day long. And then he said also, I want your temple never to be closed except for a short time at around midnight. And then the third thing he asked from the Lord, he said, give me the benediction of having no children. Now that's an interesting benediction that a householder would ask for. The reason he asked for that was because he understood that if he had children, they would declare ownership over the temple. And you see this happens in Vrindavan quite a bit. There's these families called the Goswami families. And these families actually claim ownership from one generation to another over particular temples. The Radha Damodar temple, and all the temples, all the main temples in Vrindavan. And as a result of that, many of them have sold off temple properties. For example, if any of you have been to Vrindavan, you've probably been to Loy Bazaar. And Loy Bazaar was actually owned by all the temples before. All the stores in Loy Bazaar were owned by the temples, and they were sold to give money. So anyway, so that's the story, the exoteric story of the appearance of Lord Jagannath. But the esoteric story is even more interesting, and it was told by my dear godbrother, Gaur Govinda Maharaj. And the story goes as follows. Once upon a time, as all stories go in the beginning, Krishna's wives in Dwarka became very curious, and they wanted to hear about Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan. So who do they go to? Rohini. Rohini, of course, is Balaram's mother, but she lived in Dwarka, and she also lived in Vrindavan when Krishna was very young and Balaram was very young. So they asked her, please tell us about Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan, especially with the gopis. And she said, I can do that, but we have to make the arrangement that nobody, especially Krishna and Balaram, will not hear these things, or else they'll want to go back to Vrindavan. Okay? And who are we going to post as a guard at the door? And they thought, Subhadra. She'll guard the door. So they put her at the door. She's guarding the door. And they told her, guard the door, don't let anyone in, and don't listen. You're prohibited from listening. So as soon as you tell someone not to listen or not to do something, okay, I want to do it. This is very important. If you want someone to do something, just tell them not to do it. Especially with children. Sometimes with children, I tell, don't chant Hare Krishna, please. And then just to think that they're aggravating me, they start chanting Hare Krishna. That's very good. And if I say, chant Hare Krishna, no. So children have that mentality. So Subhadra was like that too. So she was at the door, guarding the door, and she put her ear to the door, so to speak. And she heard what was going on, and she got, wow. Now remember, Subhadra, Balaram, and Jagannath, they have Lord Krishna. Their bodies are spiritual. Angani yasha shakalendriya dri tibati ajopisan bhutanamisropisan pratim swamadishtaya sambhavami atmamaya. Their bodies are completely spiritual. So when Krishna or Balaram or Subhadra change their mood, they can have their bodies look, same body, they don't change their bodies, like anything they want. For example, Lord Nrsingadev. Lord Nrsingadev is Krishna. It's the same. Krishna is his body. We are not our bodies. If we want our bodies to look like something different, we have to reincarnate, right? If you want to be a handsome young man, you got to reincarnate. Of course, you got to pray to Krishna. You got to have some good karma too. Or if the ladies want to be a supermodel, like, oh my God, like the President of the United States' wife. You got to reincarnate. I don't think any of you are going to be able to do that now. So, but Krishna, when he wants to, he can manifest himself any way he wants. Advaita Chuda Nati Anada Rananta Rupamajam Purana Purusham Navayovanam Cha. And therefore, Lord Nrsingadev is Krishna. Remember that. The same Krishna, same transcendental body, non-different from himself. He just looks differently when his mood changes. I mean, we can manifest a little bit different look when our mood changes. Like if we get angry, you know, you look a little different, but you don't develop nails and a lion's head. Isn't it? So, but Krishna does that. So, anyway, so when Subhadra heard this, her mood changed. Her mood, she became very ecstatic, and her arms shrunk up, and her eyes opened wide. Wow, like that. And she looks like Subhadra, like the deity of Subhadra and Lord Jagannath Baladev, Subhadra Maharani. And then Balaram comes along. Same thing happens to him. Then Krishna comes along. Same thing happens to him. Because that's their mood. Therefore, that's the reason why Lord Jagannath looks like Lord Jagannath. Because he's Krishna experiencing separation from the residents of Vrindavan. So that's Krishna experiencing vipralamba, or separation. And so when the Ratha yatra is taking place and Lord Chaitanya is dancing in front of Lord Jagannath, Lord Chaitanya is Krishna also, but he's in the mood of Radharani. And he's experiencing, well, he, in the mood of Radharani, is experiencing separation from Lord Jagannath, from Lord Krishna. And Krishna, as Lord Jagannath, because the same Krishna in two different places at the same time. It's interesting, isn't it? Krishna and Lord Chaitanya, well, the same person, right? But in the mood of Radharani, Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Radha Krishna Nayanya. And Krishna, as Lord Jagannath, is Krishna too. So you have two Krishnas there. And that's the amazing thing about Krishna. He can be in unlimited places simultaneously, or different places, different times, or anything he wants. He's up to kama. He gets what he wants. He can do anything he wants. So that's, if you think about it, it's amazing. Krishna on the cart, looking at himself, who's in the mood of his girlfriend. And they're both feeling separation from each other. If that doesn't, as they say, blow your mind, I don't know what would. It's inconceivable, a chincha. And that's the Ratha yatra, which signifies, of course, the meeting at Kurukshetra of Krishna and the gopis, and the Krishna and the other residents of Vrindavan. And the gopis' desire to bring Krishna back to Vrindavan, because they couldn't relate to Krishna at Kurukshetra. In other words, relate to him in the sense that he was in the kingly garb or the kingly mood. It's like if you have a close friend and you visit him in the office. It's not so satisfying, right? It's just like, get out of here already and come back home. Or like, a wife or something, like, goes to visit her husband in the office. When are you coming home? I mean, she's not happy to relate to him in the office. He's the boss there. But at home, she's the boss. So she's not very happy. Anyway, so it's the same thing. Radharani wants to bring Krishna back to Vrindavan. So, and Lord Chaitanya composed verses in that regard, I am the same Radharani, and you are the same Krishna, but I wish to enjoy with you in Vrindavan beneath the Vitasi tree. There's so many beautiful verses like that that actually were understood by Srila Rupa Goswami in his Vidagdha Madhava and Lalita Madhava, which Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu composed these verses, and Rupa Goswami actually basically wrote a purport to these verses in his two famous plays, Lalita Madhava and Vidagdha Madhava. Anyway, so that's Ratha yatra. I mean, there's many other stories we can tell about Ratha yatra, but today in Jagannath Puri, actually they already started on it because it's later in India today. Today they've actually started the Ratha yatra ceremony, and I'm sure if some of you go on the internet, you can watch it live, or you can watch a recording of it. So anyway, all glories to Lord Jagannath. Jagannath Ratha yatra ki jai. So anyway, I wanted to speak about these two other personalities, but we don't really have time this morning. Swarup Damodar Goswami, who was Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's intimate associate, and he is actually Lalita Devi, considered to be an incarnation of Lalita Devi in Krishna's pastimes. Ramananda Roy is considered to be an incarnation of Vishaka Devi. And also Shivananda Sain, who was a great devotee who brought the devotees to Jagannath Puri each year to see Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Anyway, that's all we have time for right now. Any questions or comments? Anybody have any questions about Ratha yatra or comments? Yes?
Hare Krishna. Thank you for wonderful lecture. So I would like to ask, can we say that Ratha yatra is a person, or can we say that Ratha yatra is a person, or is it something else?
A person. That's an interesting question. I had to think about that one. It's a ceremony. It's a festival. I guess in one sense you can say that, festivals are personified in the spiritual world. I mean, I don't find any Shastric reference to that. The Ratha yatra, the ceremony is a person. There might be, personification of Ratha yatra. You have to look it up. You have to ask AI that question. So, something I don't know. Yeah.
And second question, if I can. You mentioned that Lord Jagannath's wife is Lakshmi.
Yeah.
But I heard
That's right.
So what is the correlation? Or
Correlation, Nrsimha's wife is Lakshmi, Lord Baraha's wife is Lakshmi, Lord Kurma's wife is Lakshmi, same person. And Lakshmi has many expansions. Lakshmi Sahasra Sata Sambrahman, Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. And Lord Narayan's wife is Lakshmi, right? And the Adi Lakshmi is who? Does anyone know? Srimati Radharani. The original Lakshmi is Srimati Radharani. So, yeah. So, yeah, so it's the same Krishna, so why shouldn't he have Lakshmi in all of his various incarnations as his wife? Should he have like one wife, Susie Devi or something? So, Susie Devi. Anyway, it's kind of funny. So, but he has many wives. But they're all considered Lakshmi, either Shakti Tattva or empowered jivas. I mean, some of Krishna's wives are jiva souls. But they're considered Shakti because they're empowered. You understand? Just like Krishna has many incarnations that are jiva tattva. These are Shakti tattvas. Shakti avatars, Shaktavesh. Shakti Shaktavesh. Like that. So, Lakshmi also. So many Lakshmi Sahasra Sata Sambrahma Sevyamanam Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. Sahasra, thousands. Unlimited Lakshmis. That's Krishna. So, yeah, that's fine for Lord Jagannath to have Lakshmi as his wife. Lord Kurma. It's interesting, Lord Kurma, Lakshmi. Does anyone worship a Lakshmi Kurma deity? Here? Anyone? No? But I'm sure there's Lakshmi. Lakshmi is always there. Whenever Krishna appears, Krishna doesn't appear alone. He comes with his associates and his wife, Lakshmi. Good question. Anyone else have a question? Yes.
Krishna Gurudev, I was just thinking how Srila Prabhupada, when he was a child, he was also playing his
Ratha yatra.
Ratha yatra, and he said that he was always doing. Later, as an acharya, he was always saying, said that even as a child he did it, and now he's doing it again, doing Ratha yatra all over the world and worshipping Hare Krishna. So it seems also in his eyes it was a big part of the mission to organize.
Oh, yes. Yes. I mean, it's a very, but thank you for pointing that out. A very big part of the mission, and of course anyone who pulls the cart is actually rendering direct service. Anyone who sees the cart, etc., they become liberated. Not that they go back to Godhead necessarily, but they become liberated. So it's very important. And people get, Lord Jagannath is also called sometimes Patita Pavana. There's actually another deity in Jagannath Puri called Patita Pavana Jagannath. Does anyone know about that? Where us Malachas can see. That means those of us who are not allowed in the temple can actually take darshan of Patita Pavana Jagannath. So, yeah, I mean, he's very merciful, and Prabhupada stressed very much this Ratha yatra. He wanted Ratha yatras all over the world. First Ratha yatra Prabhupada had was in San Francisco, and it was on the back of a truck, a flatbed truck. And they took the deities and took them, eventually after the Ratha yatra, took them through the streets. But they went up to Prabhupada's house, and Prabhupada was recuperated. But Prabhupada did say that only on Ratha yatra should they take the deities out. Because sometimes the devotees got very sentimental. There's one time in New York, or was it, no, San Francisco. They actually took Lord Jagannath out and put him in the middle of the park. There's pictures of that. You've seen pictures of it? And they started dancing around him. And Prabhupada came out. He saw that, he was shocked, but he also participated in that festival that day. And there's a nice video of the devotees dancing around Lord Jagannath. But Prabhupada said, no, only on Ratha yatra does he come out of the temple. Ratha yatra day does he come out of the temple. Otherwise, you can't, not supposed to take him out other than that. You can take Gornatai out at any time. They're always going, Dina Hina Yata Chilo, always going to the fallen people and giving them their mercy. Okay, thank you for pointing that out. Oh, Krishna, I think it's time to end, right? It's 9 o'clock. So thank you very much. All glory is to His divine grace. A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Okay. So our meeting is at 10? 11? Not now. At 11. I mean after the... Okay. Well, our meeting's at 11, but I have a GBC meeting at 1:30. So our meeting has to end so I can do... Today I think no. Tomorrow we're going to have those. I mean, we're here for many days, right? Tomorrow we'll have more time. I have a GBC meetings, and there's no morning meetings tomorrow, right? So we have the whole day tomorrow. Okay.